Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Wiger, State Senator, and today I'm very pleased to have with me Mary Cathryn Ricker, the Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Education. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
As the viewers know, education is my top priority. It's in our Constitution, that right to an education. It's our future, our democracy depends on it, the future workforce, etc. I know it's your passion, I'm so happy you're here to tell us about your vision for Minnesota education. So
thank you.
Tell us first about the Department of Education and what your role is, and maybe within a couple of minutes if you could.
Absolutely, yes. Well, thank you. So the Minnesota Department of Education is actually one of the state agencies that oversees our public school system.
Yes.
So all of our school districts, of which there are about 335, and all of our public charter schools, of which there are about 165, and of course all of our public school students, of which there are about 800,000 across the state of Minnesota, as well as the Minnesota Department of Education helps make sure that we are supporting our state library system as well.
Yes.
And of course, we know the importance of our libraries in the community. We know the importance of our public schools in the community, and so the Minnesota Department of Education is here to serve both.
Good. How many employees are there? You're the boss as the commissioner overseeing that, but it's quite a workforce.
Yes, we have just under 400 employees at the Minnesota Department of Education.
Yes.
And as you can imagine, they are in areas such as supporting our Minnesota state standards. They're also supporting the nutrition services that we provide in our school communities across the state of Minnesota.
Yes.
They are supporting teaching and learning in the state of Minnesota. Of course, they're providing direct support to our districts and our charter schools, and again, as well as supporting our public libraries.
And the headquarters is in Roseville on
That's right.
By Snelling and Highway 36.
Highway 36,
It used to be a big insurance company there, but you have a very good presence there, and also you have staff.
Been there about 20 years.
Yes, and you have staff that work in different centers too that provide assistance on best practices.
Our regional centers of excellence, yes. So we support regional centers of excellence across the state of Minnesota, so that if a school wants support, particularly in an area that where they have been struggling, they don't have to come to Roseville. They don't have to come to St. Paul for that support. They can go to one of the regional centers of excellence, and so you can actually find the locations of our regional centers of excellence on our website.
Yes.
So if you went to education.mn.gov, you'd find a whole host of information, including those regional centers of excellence. But you'll get an incredible snapshot of the sort of support that the Minnesota Department of Education and the professionals working in the Department of Education provide across the state of Minnesota.
And you mentioned the website. You navigate that. You can find out a great deal of information about how the schools are doing, how a particular school in your community is. Just put in the search engine a question. So I'm very impressed with the data that you can get. And I mentioned the Constitution in terms of that right to an education and access, and regardless of zip code, but we want opportunities for all students. And we have expectations that overall that the legislature, it's the biggest part of our budget, it should be, for the investment in education. And at the federal level, they also have expectations. So you have a lot of different input, and of course the importance of the local level through the school boards in providing educational opportunities for students. So what I'm getting at is expectations, accountability, and what are the students learning? What are the expectations? And one item I've been involved in is the goals for world's best workforce.
Yes.
But tell us about accountability, the expectations, and how are we doing?
That's right. Well, I will say that that first level of accountability is, of course, that level of what school communities put together to support their students.
Yes.
And so to your point about the legislature's investment in our public schools in the state of Minnesota, our school communities take that, and you can see in community after community, and I know you spend a lot of time in the schools in your district, and I know other senators and representatives do the same thing, and you all get a chance to see firsthand the ways our school communities, our school leaders have invested in the ambitions of their students.
Yes.
And they take that investment from this legislature, from the state of Minnesota, and we see school communities that have created incredibly engaging secondary opportunities for students. Or we've seen school communities create arts magnets or Montessori magnets or immersion magnets for our elementary school students. This is that first layer of accountability, right? When a student and their family come to a school and ask, how are you going to support the academic needs of students? How are you going to support the social and emotional needs of my students? How are you going to support the safe and welcoming needs of my students? And so that's that first layer, and that school community shows up in that way. And we have state and federal accountability standards as well. And so we have obviously put together, from like what you have said around World's Best Workforce, has some expectations for reporting how our students are doing as they enter school, how are our students doing upon graduation. We also have we reauthorized the ESEA at the federal level for the Every Student Succeeds Act, right? So now it's, we call it ESSA. And ESSA asks for some accountability measures as well, some annual accountability measures that are around some of our achievement. How are we teaching to Minnesota's academic standards? As well as in the state of Minnesota, we have asked, how are we performing as it relates to consistent attendance for our students and making sure that our students are in school on time.
A key
every
indicator
day.
of whether you're going to graduate or how well you're doing is if you're in school.
That's right. That's right. When we look at when we have attendance concerns about a student, of course we want to get to the bottom of what is preventing that student from getting to school on time every day, and we want to be able to address it. And oftentimes there are professionals right in the school community who can help address it. Sometimes we're working within the community itself. We might be a school district might be partnering with their county, for example, to help on attendance issues.
Yeah.
Those partnerships are a critical part of meeting the needs of students, and you know that. Yeah.
Well, we know the importance of ultimately graduating and hopefully ready then for the next step, whether it's VOTEC, military, college, or maybe they're all set through opportunities in high school to go to a good job. That's out there too. We measure this. If you want to find out how any particular school is doing, you can go to your website. And if there's concerns that the department has, how does that work? Because you have the help centers on best practices, but if a school is continuing to fail, we want everybody to succeed. But,
Absolutely.
What happens then?
Yeah, and so part of that is a diagnosis as well, right? And looking at a school, if they are coming to us and saying we are struggling to meet the needs of our students, we have to ask, like, well, let's look at areas where you are struggling. Are the students in your school struggling with reading consistently? Is that should we zero in on the sort of reading instruction and understanding of what the Minnesota's academic standards around reading are? Should we zero in on that instruction? Do you have a group of students who are struggling with consistent attendance? What can we do? What are the sort of partnerships we can pull together in your community to help support attendance in your school community? And so there isn't a public school in the state of Minnesota that wants to fail students. Right? Every school leader I have encountered wants to meet the ambitions of students with ambitions for that school and have them partnered. Too. That's right. That's right. Everyone surrounds a student with that sort of support. Yeah. And so there are school communities that if they feel like they are struggling to meet the needs of students, they want to figure out, they want to diagnose where are we struggling, and how do we support that? And we can be a critical partner in doing that for schools, where we can provide support, we can provide some mentorship, we can provide professional development if it's needed. We can certainly provide some clarifications around meeting around the Minnesota academic standards, for example. We want to be there to support the ambitions of our schools as they support the ambitions of our students.
Yeah. You mentioned the importance of graduation, of course,
That's right.
as I shared as well. And then earlier on, that students are ready for kindergarten. And we have invested a great deal in early education, particularly high-quality opportunities.
That's right.
Share with us the importance of a high-quality educational opportunity for a student so that they're hopefully prepared for kindergarten and the journey ahead.
Absolutely. So, Minnesotans are actually really well educated about the sort of research out there that shows that a high quality early learning experience sets a student up for success in their education, in their K-12 education, then of course, and on from there.
Yeah.
And so meeting that understanding and the access to high quality early learning has been obviously a goal of the legislature and of our current governor and our past governor for a while now. And as we have built out those opportunities in different communities, we have seen the community respond very enthusiastically. We have seen students go into high quality early learning programs across the state of Minnesota. We see families really happy with them. We see school communities building other programming around those early learning opportunities,
Yes.
right? So that transition from early learning to kindergarten is smoother. And then we're hearing from some of our kindergarten teachers, some of our first grade teachers, our second grade teachers, that they are noticing the difference it's making, right? As students coming to school with some of those habits of a student, with some of that background knowledge that they're eager to share with their fellow students, as well as with their teachers and their paraprofessionals. It's really been it's been a source of enthusiasm and it's been a source of success in the state of Minnesota as we continue to invest in our earliest learners.
And as you know, part of how we measure how we're doing is through tests.
That's right.
Otherwise, it's based maybe on anecdotes or impressions, but somehow we do measure. Tell us about the testing system that we do have and how that relates to accountability and any changes that we may need to make, or thoughts on that in general.
Absolutely.
Testing.
Yeah. So first, again, when we look at accountability, we start with the accountability in that teaching and learning situation.
Yes.
And we really build out in concentric circles from there. And, as I sort of picture it, as I visualize it. And so students, the first accountability is the feedback we provide students,
Yes.
right? In the tests they're taking on a regular basis, on the essays they're turning in, on the projects they're doing. That sort of high quality, timely feedback has been shown to really help build student learning. And then, of course, the accountability we have to translate that information to families, right? So the parent-teacher conferences we've had, the sort of parent engagement, the sort of family engagement we have had with our school communities is that next important measure of accountability.
Yep.
How are we communicating regular progress our students are making to their families? And so then, as you build out from that, how is a school measuring its progress with students? And one of the ways that the state of Minnesota provides some feedback for schools to measure their progress with students is the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, shorthand the MCAs,
Yes.
right, as one way. The larger ESSA accountability framework, and the larger World's Best Workforce accountability requests. So reporting on graduation rates, reporting on the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, reporting on consistent attendance. These are regular annual measures that school communities are providing to the state of Minnesota. And as you said, there's some of the measures you can find on each school's website,
Yes.
within the Minnesota Department of Education's
Yes.
website.
And if there's a concern you'll point that out at least because everybody wants to improve.
That's right.
And
that's right.
At least
Part of
that's the
reporting,
expectation.
That's right. Part of reporting that annual progress that school communities do, whether it's a school or an entire district, is also reporting what they're noticing and how they plan to address what they're noticing. Again, the diagnosing they're doing of how they're working to meet the needs of students and what they plan on doing based on what they see in all of the information they're collecting from students and their school communities.
Okay. Right now, our graduation rate is it 83%?
That's right, just over 83%.
And that's, I
Total.
think, on time. And then if you wait a
Four-year
few more
measure.
years,
Yep.
It gets a little better.
That's right.
And we want everyone to graduate. In fact, there's several schools, actually, they tend to be rural, but and smaller, where it's 100%. And there are a number of suburban districts that are in the low to mid 90s percent. We do see that in some of the inner city schools, it's less of a completion rate. And an issue I know you're concerned about as well is in the difference in the gap between students of color and
Indigenous
white
students.
and Indigenous.
Yep.
And so it's on everybody's radar, and there's a lot of discussion, but your take on this and what are we going to do? Because I know how determined you are.
That's right. No, I really appreciate you asking because we have seen some growth in the graduation rates in the state of Minnesota, right?
Yes.
And we should be proud but not satisfied with where it is. And we have seen, our African American students have made the greatest gains in closing that gap, which we're really excited about. We should also get to find out how has that been happening, and so let's do more of what's working. And so let's make sure we understand how that gap is closing faster there. And then we should also look to school districts where we are seeing high graduation rates and diverse student populations, so where we're seeing little or no gap, and we're asking ourselves, we're asking those school districts, what are you doing, right? Why is your graduation rate so successful? Let's learn from those stories, and then let's share, and let's go back to where a school is struggling. Let's ask them, what is it, how are we diagnosing what's happening here? Where are the struggles? How do we as a state help break down those barriers to graduating in 4 years? And let's also notice that where students have heard school communities say, we are not giving up on you, students don't give up on themselves. So to your point, we do have a 4-year graduation rate. That 5-year graduation rate goes up. That 6-year graduation rate goes up, which means that when students persevere, schools persevere alongside them and get them to that graduation rate, which is our goal. And so let's learn from those situations too. Where are we successful at telling students, don't give up yet because we're not giving up on you, right? Where are we successful? And then let's spread that message as well. And then the last thing I would say too is, the graduation rate is a number. The stories behind that number raising these past few years is really where I get my inspiration from. As you visit with school communities, right? Your secondary school communities, but certainly your K-12 school communities, and you find out the creative ways our school leaders have reshaped a school day or reshaped a school experience to better meet the needs of students. You are seeing students more engaged. You're seeing students understand the relevance, the connection between what they're learning in school and what their ambitions are for themselves once they graduate. So as you see schools expanding their career and technical opportunities, you see schools expanding opportunities for students to explore industry certification in some growing areas of our economy. You see school communities diversifying their rigorous coursework, right? Making sure that a more diverse student body are in their advanced placement courses or their international baccalaureate courses or any of their honors courses. You are seeing schools, again, meet the ambitions of their students, and you're seeing students more engaged. And I think that is part of what is behind this rising graduation rate. So let's learn those stories too, and let's share them out and let's replicate them wherever we can.
fair funding for education. I know there's a task force that's in the process of
That's right.
being rolled out. Just your initial take on what needs to be done. Clearly, when we put high expectations and we have the standards and we say we want the world's best workforce, we need to provide the tools and we
That's
need to do
right.
it in a fair way. So what's the plan for addressing the legislative request on this?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Well, I will say in the privilege I have had in the last 8 months or so of getting into school communities, right, talking to school leaders, talking to students and their families and practitioners and paraprofessionals, the very first thing everybody wants to talk to me about is what the ways they are meeting the needs of students, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing these innovative programs. I am seeing the way they're rising to meet the ambitions of their students. The second thing most folks want to talk to me about is the funding they want for their schools to continue to invest in the ambitions of their students. And so I know that it is on the front of everyone's minds in our school communities. And so one of the ideas behind this task force is to get at how we are funding schools now. Right? What are some of the funding streams we have inherited? What are some of the funding streams we have created recently that are working to meet the needs of our students? And what, looking ahead to meeting the needs of students 19 years into the 21st century,
Yes.
right? What are some ways we should be thinking about funding to better meet the needs of our students and better meet those sorts of ambitions they're coming to school with? And I think that will be a really vibrant discussion as part of the school finance task force. Absolutely.
We look forward to that.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you for bringing this.
Yeah, thank you for
Wentworth
asking.
Schoolhouse, tell me about this.
Yes. So my dad is a retired math teacher, and he is an amateur woodworker, although it doesn't look amateur. So I use
That's
that word
very
in
nice.
its denotation, not its connotation. And so when I was appointed Commissioner of Education, my dad made this for me for my new office as a congratulations. And so he modeled it after some other houses he's made, like bird houses and other things for my mom and other folks. And so, he turned it into a little one-room schoolhouse including a bell.
And a tissue if you
and
need a
yeah,
tissue.
and he cleverly made it a tissue holder so that I can keep it on my desk for those moments when the ragweed is going wild in the state of Minnesota, or in the middle of winter when I have to press on in the middle of a cold like we all
Or
do.
maybe
right?
just a tearful day.
That's right.
It could
Those
be
happen too.
happy tears too.
That's right. Exactly. So thank you for asking. I'm happy to share it.
Maybe even most importantly, you're a highly qualified teacher. And one thing I noticed when I first met you, around you had the nationally
my national
certified-
board.
I mean, this is the highest
Yeah.
credential, I believe, but tell us
That's
about
right.
that. And just an overview as we're running out of time about your
Absolutely.
passion for teaching. And obviously it shows, but that high
Yeah,
credential,
thank you.
that you achieved it and what you've done in the classroom.
Right. So I earned my initial national board certification in early adolescent English language arts in 2004. And it was something I knew I wanted to do as part of my career in teaching for a while. And so in the 2003-2004 school year, I pursued my board certification and found out in November of 2004. That's how indelible it is. I can still remember
Yes.
where I was when I learned I had achieved national board certification.
That's huge. That's
Yeah,
huge.
and so national board certified teacher is an indication of really reflective practice, and accomplished practice. It means you are a reflective practitioner, that you plan your lessons with students in mind, you reflect on your practice with students in mind, how you met the needs of students. More importantly, identifying those areas where you did not and what you were going to do about it in the very next lesson, right? So it's a constant cycle of reflective practice, and I really wish the board certification process for all of our instructors. We have over 500 board
Yes.
certified teachers, or right around 500 board certified teachers in the state of Minnesota. I actually think with some effort we could boost that number exponentially, and I think every student deserves a board certified teacher. And so I had the opportunity to renew my board certification in 2014, and it is absolutely a commitment I have to my own practice as a teacher, even if I don't have my own classroom right now.
Well, may we provide additional incentives, opportunities at the legislative level as well on this. And also, if you could share, where were you raised and that path to becoming a teacher?
Right, yeah, thank you. I was born and raised in Hibbing, Minnesota, right? So, about 3.5 hours north of here. And so, as I explained, I come from a family of teachers, actually. So when
Dad is a math teacher?
My dad is a math teacher. Yep, I have a number of uncles who are teachers, and aunt who is a teacher.
Gosh, good.
And I think it was college when I decided to commit to being a teacher, and it was deciding between math and English. And I ended up getting certified in English and just getting a math minor at the University of St. Thomas here in St. Paul. And that's when I actually fell in love with the city of St. Paul and all of its neighborhoods. And
you live here now?
Yes,
I believe,
exactly.
Family?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so I am actually. My spouse is also a teacher, and I have 2 children who are recent graduates of St. Paul Public Schools, and we'll both be in college a week from now.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Mary Cathryn Ricker, thank you so much. There's many more questions I'd love to ask,
Thank
and
you.
another time we will.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you again, and thank Governor Walz for appointing you to this commission.
Thank you very much.
And in addition, there's many of the topics we talked about. If they want to get more information, learn more about the schools, they can go to their school website. They can go to your website.
Yes,
Maybe
please.
once more, if you could mention the website.
I would love to, yes. So education.mn.gov, so education.min.gov. Also, if you want to email me, you can email me at mde.commissioner, so it's mde.commissioner@state.mn.us. And so they can follow up with me, and hopefully you can find the information you want on the website and more. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. So thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your inspirational leadership.
Thank you.
And students are our future, so let's do all we can to
Thanks so
support
much.
it.
And welcome back to school, everyone.